You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves make it 3 in a row thanks to 37 points from the Ant-Man. Final score tonight, 127-102. What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Jack Borman, give him a follow at JRBorman13. And Jack, plenty to break down tonight, including Ant making it rain from 3+, Rudy Gobert's 9,000th rebound. But first, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Game Time. Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, man. Wolves, they make it 3 in a row tonight. This felt like the kind of game flow we thought we were going to get last night versus Chicago versus the Bulls. Kind of pure domination early on. 35 points in the first quarter. Blazers just 17. They let them kind of creep back into it, though. They cut the lead to 13 at halftime. And then third quarter, it was just a barrage of Ant-Man making it rain from 3 again. 9 of 15 on the night. 37 points in total. They kind of run away with it at the end. 2 wins on their first back-to-back of the year. Just kick us off here. Let's just start. Big takeaways, kind of your A topics first and foremost.
Yeah, I think obviously what Anthony Edwards did was pretty fantastic. We'll get into what Ant did a little later. But the number one thing is just the 3-point shooting. It cannot be understated how huge it is in today's NBA to just have lights out shooters all over the floor. And we keep looking down at these numbers, and the Timberwolves continue to have games where they're shooting, 39, 42, 47, 52% from 3. And tonight they made 22 3-pointers to Portland's 6. That 16 3-pointers made margin is the second highest in franchise history. That's according to Timberwolves play-by-play guy Alan Horton on the radio. So yeah, I mean, it's really difficult in today's NBA to win a basketball game or even remain competitive when the 3-point differential is that wide. And it all started in the first quarter. Timberwolves put up 35 points in the first quarter, really came out of the gates.
Some minor technical difficulty, and that's what happens when Ant goes off for 37. It's just, there's a new buzz and electricity going on in the Twin Cities. That's what that was.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, no, but again, like I was saying, it's just hard to win a basketball game in the NBA when you get outshot the way that the Blazers did tonight. But yeah, like I said, in that first half or first quarter, 35 points, 80 points in the last 2 quarters is a great mark for the Timberwolves going back to the fourth quarter of last night in Chicago. But they shared it really well. I thought the first 15 minutes, their process offensively was awesome. They played with a good amount of pace. They're running off stops. They ran in transition pretty well. They got great looks, and when they weren't connecting on shots, they were getting putbacks. It all started with that huge Rudy Gobert putback that he had early to kind of get into the game. And what I loved was a bunch of different guys were getting the ball, were getting opportunities to take open shots, score inside, and just kind of get the ball where they like it and play in their spots. And that's why, you get Julius into the game early, you get Ant into the game early, you get DiVincenzo into the game early, you get Rudy into the game early, you get Nas. Like everyone really kind of fed off of that early on in the game, with the exception of Mike Conley. But yeah, again, the Timberwolves at one point scored on 13 of 14 possessions, not counting that heave at the end of the first quarter, which is, again, just tremendous and speaks to, I think, the footing that the Timberwolves are finding offensively. I think they're really starting to gel more on that side of the floor, understand, where each other likes the ball, especially with Randall. I think Randall's been really helpful in terms of guys are starting to understand that he's really becoming quite good at cutting behind guys who are driving. You see that a lot when DiVincenzo drives from the corner, that Randall does a great job of filling behind and replacing, so that when he penetrates and comes on the other side of the basket, he's got to dump off to Randall right there, which is huge. But again, in the first, and then in the second part of the second quarter, and the Timberwolves offense just got really stagnant. They weren't sharing it very much. They weren't moving a whole lot without the basketball. But again, that's where the 3-point shot can just be the great equalizer. And that, at one point, the Wolves, had a good deal of turnovers. I think they had three turnovers and 4 misses as Portland kind of started to get back into the game. But but if you're going to make 4 of your 9 threes, in the first part of the quarter, you're going to be just fine. But again, the other side of the ball for the Wolves in the first half was really strong too. I think in the first quarter, you saw Anthony Edwards make good on what he said last night in Chicago, that he needs to take more pride on the defensive end of the floor. And it starts with him. It starts with Jaden McDaniels. Right. And you saw those two guys really turn it on to I think fuel a lot of what they were doing offensively with being able to play off of stops. Obviously the Blazers started, I think, 0 of 11 from the floor, which certainly speaks to that. And I thought Rudy Gobert was also tremendous inside early in this game. Had those 2 pretty emphatic blocks, had 2 contested rebounds on the defensive end of the floor that I think kind of let everyone know that he was there to play tonight. And we talked about this a little bit last night, needing veteran guys to show up and play really well in a game where, Portland's a talented team offensively. And they didn't necessarily show that tonight, but if you sleepwalk into this game, they're a team that can for sure beat you. And Rudy Gobert, I think, especially early on, did a great job of setting a professional tone and say, hey, I'm not going to let us lose this game. Like we've seen so much from him thus far in his Timberwolves career, playing against inferior opponents.
Yeah, coming into this one, it just felt like it was going to be a Rudy Gobert type of game for sure, and more on him a little bit later on. But, a 30-minute show, there's no way we're not going to spend another 4 or 5 minutes just deep diving how special and how crazy Anthony Edwards has been from beyond the arc. I'll let you kind of rip through some more stats and facts and all that good stuff. I know he's leading the league in threes per game right now, along, again, with a plethora of other kind of wild analytics. But here's what I'm noticing the most. I feel like he's always had that running 3-point shot down pretty good, but now just through these 10 games, it's the slide steps, the movement with the ball in his hands, and the fact he's hitting them from not just the boundary or the tip, but he's knocking them down from the corner as well. I think they said on the broadcast 46% clip from almost every spot on the court from 3, from beyond the arc. So, I mean, we talked about his game and how it's evolving last night, but talk to me about the 3-point game, how dangerous and how well-rounded, I guess, all of a sudden he is everywhere on the court. And what's the new ceiling then of this offense, or what's that look like when a guy like him can be so deadly, so consistently anywhere, anytime?
Yeah, no question. I think what's most impressive to me about Anthony Edwards' 3-point shooting right now is that all of it seems to be in rhythm and in the flow. I think in previous years when he would dance with the ball a little bit before jacking up a shot, it was just out of rhythm. Mm-hmm. It wasn't necessarily something that he was super comfortable doing all the time, but that was clearly what he worked on this offseason. And his 3-point mechanics look improved, both off the ball, catching, coming off of screens, or just simple catch and shoots. But on the ball, it looks a lot easier for him to get into that slide step, especially going to his left, where he gets a really repeatable and easy motion. And we saw James Harden just master that when he was in his prime in Houston for so many years. And we're starting to see some of that with Ant, which is tremendous. But I think what it really unlocks for this offense is, it I think allows Ant to score more points without expending more of his energy. And I think in previous seasons, especially at points last season, Ant would just be gassed because he had to work so hard to continually get downhill and drive and try to get to the rim. And that was, always why, he'd take these hard falls and turn his ankle. He did that tonight. We'll get into that. But, and just to have more wear and tear on his body, and that adds up for you. And I think if you can score it more efficiently, with less effort shooting these threes, and do it in a way that's really helping your offense have more spacing and make your team tougher to guard, it's just kind of a win-win all the way around for both Ant and for the team. And I think, that was unquestionably the biggest step for Ant to take. I think we saw him settle for a lot of mid-range jump shots that last year, me personally, I would have liked to see him converting to threes. I know he fell in love with that bank shot in the mid-range in the turnaround game last year, but I think it's just so much more valuable for him to be able to be a shooter and stretch the defense out, because, then once the defense has to play further out on you, it's just going to be easier for him to have more of a runway to get to the rim, where he won't have to work quite as hard to get downhill. It'll be a little bit easier for him to get past the first line of the defense. But then too, like if he's coming off a screen, he doesn't have the ball, he's coming out of the corner, and a defense is only showing one guy to Ant, he's going to shoot over that guy every time. But, if he's in a spot where two guys help on him coming off that screen, the guy who's setting the screen, his defender steps out onto Ant, you either have a backdoor cut for whomever it is, whether it's Nas or Julius or Jaden or whoever's setting the screen, or Ant can catch the ball and then just, you're playing 5-on-4 behind the defense. And that's something that he's shown he can really succeed at doing in terms of the decision-making there. So that was really important for the Timberwolves. And I think especially in games like tonight, where Portland actually allows the fewest points per game in the paint of any team in the league. So it kind of profiled as a game where the Timberwolves might get up more threes, but for them to score 127 points and still not even have 50 points in the paint.
That's crazy.
It is pretty crazy. And it just speaks to how efficient of a jump shooting team the Timberwolves are. And when your best player can score 37 points in 30 minutes, not look super tired doing it, and make 9 of his 15 threes. I mean, I'm kind of running out of words.
I feel like we're running out of stuff to say.
To be able to describe the impact that it has. I just think that you're going to be able to see Ant consistently, or more consistently, be in that 30, 35 points per game mark over the course of the season, if he even shoots it at a 40% clip on this volume, let alone a 45% clip, which is what he's doing right now. So I think the easier it is for Ant to score with shooting all these threes, the less energy it's going to take out of him. It's the further out it's going to force defenses to play on him. And hopefully the easier it will then be for him to kind of reestablish his game going to the rim. And then once that happens and you're kind of in that spot where it's like, oh boy, I mean, what is he going to do? Then you're just at the mercy of whatever Ant decides to do. And then if you decide to put a smaller guard on him because you want to have him chase Ant around the perimeter as more of a shooter, because a lot of guys that are more like Mike Conley are the guys that are guarding those movement shooters on other teams, then what Ant can do is also take those guys down in the post and play more out of the post, which is what we saw him do last season. So, he's just got, the different layers to his game right now. And I think the 3-point shot being elite right now on super high volume really is this kind of skeleton key that's just going to unlock everything for him and allow him to take down just about any type of defense and put up 30, 35, 40, 45 points whenever he's able to.
Yeah, the bag of tricks just keeps growing somehow, some way. A great breakdown there. Plenty more deep dive, including Rudy Gobert's 9,000th rebound. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, FanDuel is giving you a chance at a huge return, $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed with your first $5 wager. When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go to FanDuel and go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get in on some NBA future action while you're there. Anthony Edwards MVP odds, 8.5 to 1. Feel like just last week it was about 12 to 1, 8.5 to 1 now. Still some good value if you ask me. It's all sitting up over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed with your first $5 wager. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, I know last night I asked you about the similarities and the differences you're seeing so far between this defense versus last year, but tonight, and I know you kind of mentioned this at the top, tonight, first quarter specifically, pure domination. It felt like I looked at the clock. There was like 5.5 minutes left. The Blazers hadn't even hit double-digit points yet. And I know they got a lot of their points in the paint tonight, but anything outside the paint, at least early on, they started like 3 of 18, 3 of 20, or something atrocious like that. So what'd you see from them defensively tonight that really stuck out? Because as you mentioned at the top, again, it really felt like Ant and the whole crew took a lot of pride in that part of the game right from the jump.
Yeah, I think really that was the game for me defensively. Was how they defended the paint. I think when Rudy Gobert was out there, Portland wasn't getting anything easy at the rim. I think the only time you saw them getting stuff at the rim is if a defender slipped and someone got by for a layup because Rudy wasn't in position to help. Again, not Rudy's fault. Or if there was a second chance, like if Rudy was defending a shot and no one was there to rebound behind him and someone got an offensive putback. But outside of that, like when Rudy wasn't on the floor, Portland was scoring at ease in the rim, at the rim. Like in the second quarter, we saw Gobert picks up his third foul. And then what does Portland do? They immediately go on a 9-0 run. And I think they had 2 layups, a dunk, and 3 free throws after that. And I think this team right now is just night and day difference in the way that they've protected the rim when Rudy's on the floor versus when he's off the floor. So if I think there's one massive hole besides the turnovers that you'd have to poke in this Timberwolves team right now, I think that would be it. I think it's early in the season, obviously, but I think if there's one area the Wolves really may look at the trade deadline or in the buyout market to try to shore up, I think it might be rim protection in situations where, hey, that Naz Reid could slide down and play the 3. Excuse me, if you need him
just to your point, David asked any concerns in regards to the trouble Naz Reid has had as a rim protector. 10-game sample, small sample.
I wouldn't say that I'm concerned about it. I think he really showed stretches of excellence, especially after Carl tore his meniscus and was out for 4 or 5 weeks, whatever it was last spring. So he's certainly shown that he can do it. I think it's more so learning how to play with Julius and and some of these other guys in the team and new lineups. And I think you just got to give that a little bit of time to stabilize, because Nas spent most of the summer making sure, he's in good enough shape to play the 3, let alone, shift up and play the 5 in these types of situations. Because even though the Timberwolves and Knicks were in discussions on Karl Anthony Towns all summer, pretty much, I still don't think the Timberwolves really expected that the Knicks were going to make DiVincenzo available and then have that deal go through right before the preseason started. So I think you just got to give him some grace. He's shown that he can do it. He's been a really versatile defender, for the last calendar year, and that's been important. But
agreed.
Look, in the first half, Portland was 12 of 17 at the rim and 6 of 29 everywhere else. So that includes from 2 and from 3. And then once Rudy, went out and Portland was in the bonus, they had 15 free throw attempts in that second half, that second quarter. So again, like I said, that's kind of the one area that I think the Timberwolves really need to shore up defensively right now. And I think it will. They've got plenty of time. Hopefully the schedule, I think, will lighten up a little bit for them where they can, get a little bit more practice time in and go through some more film now that they have a little bit more of a sample size that they can look at on that end of the floor. But yeah, when you're going to have Anthony Edwards come back and respond and score 19 points in the third quarter and make 5 threes in that quarter alone, I think, that type of home run hitter can cover up a lot for you right now. And, again, it's a realistic concern to have. The Blazers aren't a very good team. At least they didn't show it tonight. But again, that may be more of a difference when, they get into the schedule, a week and a half, 2 weeks from now, and you're playing some better teams, and they're going to be able to take advantage of that more often.
Yeah, 100%. Rudy Gobert gobbled up 15 boards, including his 9,000th career rebound tonight. You've watched this game since you were a kid. Talk to me about where he kind of ranks among big men. You've seen up close and personal with your own 2 eyes in your lifetime, I guess, and just how special of a milestone is that to achieve 9,000 rebounds?
Yeah, it just speaks to his longevity in the game. I think, especially with how big and strong and physical a lot of these athletes are nowadays, just the way that he takes care of his body. I think if people were in the locker room and saw his pregame routine, you'd be pretty astonished at the level of detail that he pays to that. Eating the same thing, the same amount of time before a game, going through the exact same, kind of warm up and all
He's
that.
He's a pro's pro, man. He's a professional.
Yeah, I think that it's certainly easy to see why that guy constantly talks about winning habits. And I think some people kind of rolled their eyes when he first got here, 3 years ago. And even at the start of last season, they're 1-2, and he's talking about, we got to keep building these habits, There's like, all right, dude. But he really shows it. And I think he's just the ultimate master of doing all the little things on the floor. And when you think about the game's all-time great big men, I don't think a lot of people are going to think of Rudy Gobert. And I think they should, because I think Rudy Gobert has a great case as the game's best interior defender of all time. And I think his 4 Defensive Player of the Years ties Ben Wallace for most all time. And that's certainly going to get him into the Hall of Fame. And when you consider his rim protection, his rebounding, his screen setting, all 3 of those are up there among the very best who have ever played the game. And to be able to say that in not just one category, but 3 categories is pretty special.
Yeah, those are heavy words. Those are heavy stats and heavy statements that gotta mean a lot for sure when it's all said and done. How about the offense? Just real quick, offensive side of the things with him. The lob dunks, leads the NBA in lob dunks. I remember Cat and even Slow-Mo kind of had that down pat with him. Now all of a sudden it's like Julius or DiVincenzo and everybody else really kind of picked up where those 2 guys left off as far as getting him. It feels like he's such a unique, almost unicorn of a talent that it probably takes a while to gel with him and how to figure out how to get on the same page offensively with him. So far, though, through only 10 games, I feel like so far they picked that up pretty quickly. And I mean, for the most part, had a pretty smooth transition, I feel like.
They certainly have. And this team is sharing the ball more and moving more without the basketball. And I think being a little bit more quick and decisive with what's going on. And so I think when you do that, you're spreading out the defense a little more. You're forcing them into rotations. And when defense is rotating more, the big who's down there defending the rim and defending Gobert, a lot of times is having to keep his eyes in so many different places that you lose Rudy because he's not thought of as an offensive threat necessarily. But then you get a 2-on-1 going downhill, and guys now are starting to be able to find him up top, which is huge because, Timberwolves fans would remember when the Jazz were in their stretch of playing really, really strong basketball, 4, 5, 6 years ago, that Gobert would kill the Wolves in those types of situations in a spread floor. And so now the Wolves are able to kind of weaponize that. It's been really fun to watch. And I think it's going to make playing offense a lot easier, knowing that you have another guy in Gobert on certain nights where you can just chalk it up that he's going to score 14, 16 points just off of 5, 6, 7 lob dunks, a couple of free throws, maybe an offensive putback or 2. And I think when the offense is able to find Gobert for dump offs, for lob dunks, it's kind of a canary in the coal mine of how good or bad the offense is flowing, just because I think the more opportunities you create for Gobert come downstream from good process of sharing the ball, of getting past the first line of the defense and putting the ball in your playmakers' hands on the move, which is almost always a good thing in the NBA.
Yeah, 100%. Well said. Couple minutes left. Let's talk about this Miami game coming up. And real quick, some fun Rob Dillingham minutes right at the end tonight. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode also brought to us by BetterHelp. When your schedule is packed with work projects and more, it's so easy to start to let your priorities slip, even when we know what makes us happy. But when you feel like you got no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy, they're more important than ever. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, it's time to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. So simple. All you got to do, you fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Go visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon. You're getting 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, schedule coming up. Miami on Sunday, then 2 more with Portland. Again, bang, we're going to get to know these guys pretty well. A top storyline or 2 that just comes to mind first when you think about these next 3 games, starting with the Miami Heat.
Yeah, well, there was some carnage out in Denver tonight. Jimmy Butler turned his ankle pretty badly in that game, did not return, played only 7 minutes, I believe. So it seems unlikely that he would play in Minneapolis on Sunday. I know a shocker, general soreness, not able to lead his troops into battle, like he has not done very often since he's left Minnesota. But certainly a valid reason tonight. I saw it did not look like a fun play. So hopefully he can get back as soon as he can. Nikola Jovic, their starting power forward, also got hurt in this game and did not return. So those injuries forced Haywood Highsmith and Duncan Robinson to play more in the Heat's loss at altitude in Denver tonight. The two of those guys combined for 35 points and 9 made threes. So, we'll see if they're going to be able to replicate that. But certainly the Heat will need a lot more scoring from Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier in their backcourt. But again, those are two guys that are not overwhelming athletes, which is a good thing for the Timberwolves, because you should be able to be able to stick Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels on them and hope that you'd be able to shut them off. So certainly a very different Miami Heat team without Jimmy Butler, but also without Nikola Jovic, a guy that can play the backup 5 for them and really stretch the floor and shoot it pretty well. He was a guy who I advocated for the Timberwolves to take. I was begging for the Timberwolves to take him 2 years ago when he came out from Serbia. So he's a good player. So we'll see if the Heat are able to get either one of those guys back for Sunday. But obviously if they don't get either of them, or they only have Jovic and not Butler, it certainly should be another game that the Wolves absolutely should win. And I think they should beat the Heat even if both of those guys are playing, just because I don't think the Heat profile is a team that really give the Timberwolves a lot of problems. They're not a team that's going to get up a ton of threes. They like to play below. Their 2 stars both like to play below the arc. And they're much more of a grinded out defensive team. So that'll be interesting to see. And then with Portland, it's just a matter of, can you continue to contain Anthony Simons like the Wolves did tonight? He had just 2 points, I believe, on 1 of 8 shooting in the first half, which is a huge hat tip to Jaden McDaniels for staying out of foul trouble. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker played very well on him as well. So I think they'll need to contain him moving forward. And then again, there's just not a whole lot out there. If DeAndre Ayton's only going to shoot 6 times, if Denny Avdia isn't going to make a 3, only going to shoot 9 times, and Jeremy Grant's only going to shoot 10. I mean, there's offensive talent there for Portland. It's just a matter of how they're tapping into it. And I think when Scoot Henderson is taking the second most shots in the team, and Shaedon Sharpe is taking more shots than DeAndre Ayton, and the way that they're distributing their offensive usage right now is just suboptimal. And I think, frankly, it has all the hallmarks of a very, very poorly coached offensive team. I mean, you watch them play offense and you just don't know what they don't have a clear objective, man. Yeah. And I think they have plenty of talent there where they could build a really competent offense, and they just haven't done that so far. So we'll see if you get more guys like Shaedon Sharpe, who's a very capable 3-point shooter, to make 1 or 2. He was 0 of 4 tonight. Same goes for Simons. He was just 2 of 7. I'd be shocked if Simons only scores 14 points in either of these next 2 games. So you have to expect that he's going to kind of get off a little bit. He played very well against the Timberwolves last season. So we'll see. I would be surprised if the Timberwolves won all 3 of these games, just because it's tough to beat a team 3 times in 6 or 7 days. But they certainly have the firepower. And the good news is that, for as good as Avdia and Toumani Camara are, I just don't think either of those guys really are able to defend Anthony Edwards, and Jeremy Grant certainly can't do it either. So when you don't have a really good option to defend the Timberwolves' best player, that's certainly going to compromise you. And they don't really have a great guy to guard Julius Randle either. So I think if the Timberwolves can continue to be patient, lower that 19 turnover mark, I think they would have won this game by 40 if they had fewer turnovers in this game, and they continue to try to get out and run in transition. I think that's something that Portland has really struggled with this season, with how much they turn the ball over. And and how young their guys are. Timberwolves had 24 points off of 17 turnovers, and they had 23 fast break points tonight. So we'll see. I mean, if the Timberwolves can get in the paint a little bit more, I don't expect them to make 22 of their 53s again. You can't bank on that, even though it continues to happen. So I think, again, if the Wolves can find a way to manufacture some easier points in the paint, keep Simons under wraps, and stop turning the ball over, I think they'll be just fine.
All right, final 60 seconds. It's all yours. The loudest Target Center felt like it got tonight outside of Ant making it rain. Maybe when Rob Dillingham came in, 6 minutes, 7 points, 3 for 3, and hit a three-pointer. I thought he looked crispy out there those last few minutes. It's always hard to get a good gauge in these quick little sample sizes, but all in all, rock solid again from what we saw. What'd you think?
Yeah, he certainly did. He got another standing ovation when he came in the game. Naz Reid level standing ovation. I was only out there for a couple minutes before I came back in here with about 3.5 minutes on the clock and into my bunker to get set up here. But yeah, I think what I really like about Rob Dillingham and what I think Timberwolves fans should kind of file away in the back of their minds is this is exactly what happened with Naz Reid. It's a clearly super talented offensive player. Obviously, Rob profiles to be much more impactful earlier on since he was a lottery pick and Naz was undrafted. But Naz really built his offensive confidence by thriving in these garbage time minutes and kind of showing himself, okay, I can do this at the NBA level. I know I have the talent. I know I can score. My teammates believe in me. My coach believes in me, even though I'm not in the normal rotation right now. And I think if he can continue to just play the way that he's been playing in these garbage time minutes and play really confident, trust his talent and get to his spots on the floor and make good decisions like he has been, there's no question that I think that bodes well for him when he does enter the rotation. When Mike Conley does inevitably miss time or Dante or Na misses a game or something like that, and he's going to be asked to play rotation minutes. I think you certainly have to feel confident that he'll be pretty solid in those minutes, at least offensively, just because in the small samples we've seen from him, he's looked very composed, very confident, and certainly full of talent. And it's very easy to see why the Timberwolves were so excited to try to jump up and get him in a super unique and shrewd move, given how hamstrung they are by this second apron and in the limited team building options that they had available to him. So I'm really excited to see him continue to kind of get off in the fourth quarter and hopefully, if Miami is shorthanded and they're going to play Portland twice more next week, that there'll be some more opportunities for him to continue building some positive momentum into the later part of November and more of the thick of the season.
In Tim Conley, we trust. Yeah, he's a little lightning bug out there, man. Great stuff, as always. Wolves dominate thanks to Ant-Man's 9 3-pointers, 37 points in all. Third win in a row. Final score tonight, 127-102. They moved to 6-3. Yeah, 6-3 on the season now. As always, huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. We'll be doing these postcasts all season long, so make sure you make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Go check out all of Jack's work on X at JRBorman13. He's live at the Target Center tonight. Wolves Heat up next. We'll catch you next time, but until then, signing out.